Welcome back, everyone, to Citywide Blackout, your home for music, movies, and more. I'm your host, Max Bowen, and this time we are diving back into one of my favorite things, that is comics, and one of my new favorite comics, Virtually Yours, available only through ComiXology Originals. Now, I'll give you a quick rundown as to the story behind this comic. It's set in New York City and focuses on two characters, Max and Eva. Max is a former child actor who is struggling to sort of get out of both a career and a marriage that has done him considerable harm over the years. Meanwhile, Eva is struggling to find a career in journalism, which is not easy. Take it from someone who works in the field. Meanwhile, her parents are constantly on her to meet that right person and settle down. Enter the app Virtually Yours, a dating app which isn't actually a dating app. It's a total fictitious relationship, which I think is kind of perfect. Max and Eva meet through this thing, and let's just say things don't go quite as planned. Add some cool twists and turns, some amazing supporting characters, and some of the best art I've seen in a long time. You get one hell of a comic. Joining me are writer Jeremy Holt, artist Elizabeth Beals. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
The first thing I want to ask, and this would go to you, Jeremy, is the personal struggles that Max and Eva go through. What they go through is so raw and emotional and powerful that I don't think this comes out of thin air. Is this based on people you know or personal experiences?
Yeah. So Max is a version of Max. Part of his story is something that I lifted from my own life. The abusive marriage that he's in is something that I went through for, say, about 3 years. And to write about that was kind of a late addition to the story because I didn't think anybody necessarily wanted to see domestic violence in a rom-com. But I also, having spoken to Elizabeth and developed this since 2015, 2014, we wanted to focus on everything outside of the honeymoon phase because everybody knows what that's like, and that not everybody's in love. A lot of people are falling out of love. I was quarantined with an ex-girlfriend for 3 months. It was awful. So there's a lot of things that I pulled, and the online dating itself is something I did pretty extensively since 2005.
Putting that part of your life out there, was that hard to do?
It actually wasn't as hard as it seems, simply because back in 2017, I decided to change my approach to writing. More specifically, I had been writing white male protagonists since 2010, and I decided that that's not really my story, and I wanted to lean into my personal truths. And I realized that I've had it kind of backwards. I thought that people weren't going to be interested in my personal truths because I thought it was going to be unrelatable, but it's actually been the complete opposite. And I went from writing for an audience to writing for myself.
There was one scene that I think spoke a lot to that kind of struggle. It's sort of later on in the story. Eva is talking to Patrick, and Patrick's sort of telling her a lot about Max's story, particularly his abusive relationship. And when she asks, well, why didn't he report it? He says, well, what kind of world do you think we're in? I think that kind of sums up the struggle a lot, the struggle to even say that it's even happening.
Yeah, I mean, it was a struggle for me going through it because I didn't really know who to talk to, and I minimized it for many years. And it wasn't until I started kind of giving details to one of my best friends, and he was the one who kind of put it in perspective and said, "You're talking about abuse." And I was like, "No." He's like, "You are." And the aftermath of that, after getting divorced and living in a small town where everybody knows my ex and we had a lot of mutual friends, the few that I confided in didn't believe me. And that was really hard to kind of grapple with.
What helped you to work through that?
I think kind of figuring out more about myself and what I want. And I think for me, based on just a series of traumatic events in my life, I've always put myself second. I'm also an identical triplet, so I'm the youngest of my three brothers. So my entire life, I've just been following people. And I never really had to make big decisions because someone else kind of made it for me. And that's it was the catalyst for finding myself in these relationships where my partners were basically narcissists. And understanding complexity of narcissism was a long journey. And yeah, just kind of figuring out what I want was the big step.
And that seems to be what Max is going through, too, trying to figure out what he wants. You know, he goes from being this big-time child star in a super popular movie. It's made him good money, but he has no idea what is next for him. You know, that's the thing he wants to just forget about. His marriage, of course, coming apart. and he begins to work at Virtually Yours. And what I loved is seeing him grow in that experience, how this sort of helped him to not only work through his own struggles, but to figure out, okay, this is who I am now. Because that part of him, his identity, seems to be what got squashed in his marriage.
Absolutely.
The character of Eva, where does she come from? Because I absolutely loved her. She was so much fun to read about. It was so much fun to watch her interactions with her friends, and to kind of watch her grow too, just through being with Virtually Yours and meeting Max.
Her home life and where she grows up was modeled after a previous relationship of mine. I have an ex-girlfriend who is born and raised in New York, born and raised in the Bronx. So I would go there a lot to visit her family, and kind of seeing the interactions with her parents, it was so distinct to me that I always kind of held on to it. And that whole experience was definitely an inspiration for creating the character. And then just the idea that, we live in a society that puts pressure, especially when you get older, into dating, settling down, having a kid, buying a house, all these things. But, who's driving that engine? Why is that the best thing? And I think with the advent of the internet and all these opportunities for new careers, people aren't beholden to those old ideals. And I wanted to write a character that was firmly in the 21st century and was defying a lot of these norms.
And it's interesting, too, how those of us who don't go the route of, getting married, having kids, settling down, we're seen as weird. We're seen as kind of like the outcast, like, you don't have kids, what's wrong with you? Or if you say, I don't want to have kids, they say, oh, well, you'll, figure it out someday that you're wrong and stupid, and that's a bad notion to have.
Yeah, and I think the pendulum swings in the other way, where I've met people who've gotten married very young, and I'm like, that's weird. So, like, it's a lose-lose. I think that, it just comes down to whatever you and your partner decide upon. Like, it has nothing to do with anybody else. And that actually is very relatable to creating comic books. Like, how I work and co-create with Elizabeth has nothing to do with how anyone else puts their books together. And I know that there's debates about, like, how do artists get paid and, like, create our own comics. Like, there's really no upfront money. What are those arrangements? And I've always believed that it's really up to you and the artist. As long as both parties are consenting to a chosen agreement, it doesn't matter what society or the industry or your friends say.
How did the two of you meet, and what led you to work on a comic together?
I'll hand that off to Elizabeth.
Okay, so Jeremy and I met back in 2013 at Heroes Con. That was the first time I went. I'm not sure if it was the first for Jeremy.
First,
okay,
no.
Well then awesome. Yeah, okay, so we met there. We just hit it off, friends. And then he reached out to me, I think it was into either end of 2014, beginning of 2015 or ish. And he's like, I got this idea. And I was just like, I'm available. And so, it just took off from there, and we just started working on it, conceptualizing it in its early stages. We started working on the first pitch that we had for it. Well, it wasn't a pitch. We had a publisher for it. It didn't work out, which we're thankful for, because then we had time for it to kind of sit on the back burner, and it was just able to develop. And I think the story just only got better with time and everything, and Jeremy just put so much into it, and everything worked out from there.
It evolved from a 40-page story to a 100-page story, and the original protagonists were both white. And by the time that, when 2017 rolled around, I was looking at projects that I could go back, pitches that are in my pitch graveyard, and I thought, can I revamp this using a POC or genderqueer lead? And there's about half of the projects I have that are essentially iced that I was like, I could go back. And when I did it with Virtually Yours, it blew the doors wide open, and I was like, there are so many other things
Elizabeth, I want to talk to you about the art for the story, because I was astonished by this. This is some of the best artwork I've seen in a very long time.
Okay.
You're welcome. In particular with the city designs. Now, I lived in Boston for about 8 years, so I got very used to that city life, and just seeing things going on, the little things too, like going into the coffee shops, taking the Ubers around town. What was it like to basically have to craft New York City as a whole for this story?
Oh, it was definitely a challenge. I'm someone who loves detail in general, so when you pick something like New York City as a draft or a background for your comic and everything, it's just like, okay, well, there's a lot to work with there. And so Jeremy was great. Every location where it was a specific thing, he would send links. He's like, okay, here you go. And I just dived like right into it. And if there was anything else I wanted to do, I'd go Google Street View. I'd move around, find like, okay, well, how's the city developed since then and everything, try to merge it together, and just, I loved it. It was a challenge, but I really loved it.
Was this your first time doing something this complex?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is my first big book.
Oh, cool.
It was a great one, yeah.
What would you say was the biggest hurdle to get over for this?
Probably just trying to settle on a coloring style that I really liked, because I'm from an illustration background. So I like to go in and I like to over-render, basically. If I could do it, I'll do it. But for this one, it was like, okay, well, I have to find something that is going to gel well with the style that I've picked, and then also doesn't detract or, do too much in any certain scene. So I think deciding and landing on that was probably the hardest for me in an aesthetic point of view.
I really loved the design you did for the comic shop that Patrick runs. That reminded me of so many places I've been to in Boston. I was like, oh, I would love to be in this place. And I think it was towards the end, there was one little Easter egg I saw where you had a character pulling out a copy of Paper Girls and Saga. And I was like, yes! Love those series!
Mm-hmm. And Jeremy, he'd be like, okay, well, in this scene, we're going to have this comic reference, or we're going to do this and everything. And that was Bergen Street Comics. That was a great spot. I know Jeremy loved it.
Yeah, it was a real place for several years in Prospect Heights in Brooklyn.
Oh, cool. One thing that I thought was hilarious that I want to ask is, whose idea was it to put Jeremy in the comic? It was all Jeremy's, huh?
Jeremy.
Kind of the idea of resurrecting Bergen Street Comics, and even Beauty Bar. I resurrected that location, Park Slope, that doesn't exist anymore. And I'd always wanted to do a signing at Bergen Street, and it never worked out. The timing never worked out. And when I decided to use that shop as a primary location, and there was going to be a lot of scenes there, I thought, well, this is the opportunity to showcase what was so lovely about this place. It was the signings and the events that Tom Adams and Amy Adams, a couple that ran it and owned it, and they just created a wonderful community. And it was my introduction into the comic book world. Yeah, I just thought, hey, why not? And the detail that Elizabeth put in, like, if you go back and look at the art on the walls, those are actual pages from the book, which I didn't notice it. I've been looking at these pages for like over a year now, and it wasn't until I was doing the lettering proofing with Adam, the letterer, that I was like, God, she put the pages on the walls. Like, it's insane.
It's so sneaky.
It was so, I didn't even notice that. I did not even notice. I will have to read this again just to find that part. I've already gone through this thing twice, and I found that the second time around I was catching things that I totally missed the first go around. Maybe it was a certain character or just some little detail that I missed the first time around. I think that's what makes this such a good title. It's
so immersive, which is, that's a testament to our art, because by page one you're literally in it. I mean, I felt like I was watching it rather than reading it.
Yeah, this would make a good movie.
We think so too. Not gonna lie.
Who would you want to be in it?
John Boyega was the visual reference for Max, and I'm forgetting on the actress's name for Eva. She was in Orange is the New Black. I'm forgetting her name. So sorry. But I had definitely had two people in mind. As far as Patrick is actually modeled after a friend of mine who looks, I put Patrick into the book.
Yes.
So Patrick, the comic book shop owner, is a real person and looks like that. And I lifted some of his dialogue from stuff that I've heard him say over the 10 years that I've known him. The Katie character, I think Janelle Monáe was the inspiration.
Did your friend know that he was going to be in the book?
Oh, yeah. I was like, what do you think about running a comic book shop? And he's a big comic book reader as well. We used to go to these signings at Bergen Street Comics. So he was like, yeah, that'd be dope. So
Elizabeth, back to you for a moment. The clothes, okay?
Yes.
That was so amazing. I know in most comics, characters wear the same outfit the entire run through, but you had not only different outfits for the characters depending on what they were doing, but so many other outfits for all the other characters. I'm talking all the background characters, the supporting cast. What was it like to create this fashion palette?
Oh, man. It was a lot of fun. Fashion is one of those things that I just adore, and so any chance I get to just peruse the internet and see what's in style now and everything and just put that all together, it's super fun. But it was great because you had to go through several different seasons in the book. So we got to see like some like fall looks, and then we got to see some winter looks and everything. I just loved it. Like I would just go through sites online and be like, that looks like Eva. I'm going to put that in a little folder for her and everything. And then it's like, okay, she'd probably wear that with that skirt or like her jacket or whatever like that. And then as much as you like doing world building and like putting everything like that together, being able to build their personality with their outfits, you don't think it's going to be everything, but it's like, it really is, because it tells you like the season, the time of day, like the events they're going to, and just everything. Gladly dive back into that.
Nice. I think even like the small things, like when Eva's like job hunting and she's like wearing her pajamas all day, it's like that's exactly what a job hunter does.
Absolutely, yeah.
Not gonna lie though, I was also getting ideas from like, okay, this I would like love to rock someday. That outfit's like really cool.
That's awesome.
I mean, she also not only dressed the primary characters, but she dressed everybody. I mean, like if you were to actually think about this as if we made a movie, like I may have written and directed it, but she, I mean, produced it and was the costume designer and was the production designer. I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
The detail.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the app. Virtually Yours, the dating app that is not actually a dating app. The basically puts you with a fictitious person, which is created and kind of staffed by a real person. This is a cool idea, and I'm surprised that we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought about if there was an app for people to opt out of the social norms. The original idea, the original 40-page story really was only going to see one side of it, which was through Eva using the app, and you don't really get to see the inner workings of the people on the other end. And when we decided to expand the story, I thought, well, this would be a really nice way to kind of go in and see what it's like. And I then had to kind of reverse engineer an app that would work, because my first concern with something like this is it going sideways, like stalking or inappropriate behavior, or how do you police these things? I came across this website where it was generating selfies based on fragmentation of hundreds of thousands of images. And so the selfies you were clicking on, you just click next. The face you're looking at is not a real person. And I was blown away by that. And that kind of helped guide me in the idea that everything has to be protected. Your identity is fictitious. Your selfie for your profile is fictitious. The user and the client, or the boyfriend and the client, are completely anonymous. So yeah, it was really fun to kind of tinker with that and figure out how it would work in the real world.
I loved when Max was choosing his profile picture, and he's thinking, I want to pick like the most like boring, bland person in the world. Okay, Adam, you're it.
Yeah, and the profile picture for Adam was actually what the original character looked like. So
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so it sounds like
we recycled that.
We gifted it.
You regifted it. I like that. Do you think you would use this kind of app if it really existed?
I think I would. I think it depends on where I am in my life, but I think I do see people using it, and it's been fun to read reviews and hear what people think of it. And one of the best things I think Elizabeth and I heard on a podcast was the two people were discussing how would they work at the company. It's like, yeah, that would be super fun. I mean, the idea is that you get to. I mean, it would really be good for someone who is an introvert or is wanting to socialize but has social anxiety, and this kind of creates a safe space to be whoever you want to be. At the end of the day, you're helping somebody with super stressful aspect of dating.
It definitely does seem like a fun place to work at.
Yeah, we wanted to make it look really, really fun, like a fun, edgy, cool startup.
Okay.
Smoothie bar, yeah.
Yeah. I did see that part too. It's like, yeah, I'll work there just for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite character? And this is a question for both of you.
I like Eva.
Yes.
Eva and Katie, I love them. Fun, they're so different, they're dynamic, they're both beautiful. I'm just yeah.
I would say, I like them all for various reasons, but I wish I could have used Raul a bit more.
Yes.
He really comes back, which is unfortunate, but he was really, really fun to write.
Now, was he in the original version of the story?
So, very different. So, he was, expanding on Beauty Bar and all of that I had to kind of create new characters and stuff. So that was kind of fun.
Could be a spin-off maybe down the road.
Maybe.
No, ordinarily, once you release a new title, among the things you do is you kind of hit the road to promote it, you go to the cons and so forth. Obviously, Not an option right now because everything's closed. How has it been getting the word out?
I mean, it's been really good. I mean,
We've had a really great PR team.
oh my God, yes.
I'm going to give a shout out to Superfan Promotions. They are part of Comicsology, and they've been just so proactive. And they asked a lot from us, a lot of material from all sorts of angles. And to be honest, I was kind of like, oh God, this is homework. And then slowly, getting through it, I was like, they were like, oh, we're going to place this here, place this there. And it's just like, oh, wow, there is a strategy involved. Like, I'm sorry, I've done books at 3 other publishers, and I've never experienced that kind of attention to detail and the creativeness that Pam and David bring to the table.
Pam is absolutely amazing. She has actually arranged a number of the interviews that I've done from numerous comic creators, and yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, utilizing social media has been really fun, and I was able to get, I don't know, maybe 40 plus friends to read it and tweet about it, and that was an interesting approach because I have for years have thought I'm just going to reach out to 3 friends I know who have massive followings, and that'll be it. And Pam and David were like, you need to rethink this. It would be a better engagement organically if you had people that actually know you tweeting about it genuinely, rather than someone who's doing you kind of a favor. It was like, oh, okay, yeah. And so it's been really great because it just ups the visibility. And I think that with the world we're living through right now, I think it was refreshing for people to see POC leads in a comic book, which in and of itself is kind of rare, and that they're kind of romantic leads of a romantic story is also rare.
Why do you think that's still a rarity, even in this day and age, where we have seen some growth and some development?
I think, it's a challenge for anybody let's say any white creator might feel unsure or timid to take on a POC character because it's been done so problematically for years. And some people just don't think to. I mean, I didn't think to. I was writing white male heroes for 7 years. And I realized I think I was doing that because it was accessible. People can get into a white lead, kind of like Max picking a white boyfriend. White goes with everything, kind of. And it's like white is agreeable, white is safe. Yeah, I think there's several factors. And I feel actually fortunate to be a person of color where I'm in the right space to do this. And I have the opportunity to bring visibility and awareness to new voices.
How did doing this, making the characters POC, having a large POC cast, how do you think this changed the overall story?
It changed what they were talking about, day-to-day stuff. It changed how they were interacting with each other. It changed the jokes. Thinking back on it now, I think if we had kept the 2 white leads, I think it kind of would have been a very boring, one-dimensional story. I would have leaned really hard on the tropes of the films that I love by Nancy Meyers and Nora Ephron and Richard Curtis. And I love those movies, but they all follow a formula. And I wanted to use aspects of the formula, but I wanted to make it our own. And I've been preaching this movie to anybody who wants to listen, but Jennifer Caton Robinson made a Netflix original film called Someone Great. And this is by far the best rom-com I've ever seen. And it heavily influenced a lot of the changes I made to the narrative and to the characters and what was being discussed in a realism that most rom-coms just kind of shy away from because you want to keep the viewer in this Cloud 9 phase. And I didn't want to do that. And I think it would have been kind of boring to work on for both of us. And yeah, so changing those characters opened up viewpoints, new perspectives.
Were there any particular tropes about rom-coms that you were desperate to avoid?
There's a lot of them are just very male-centric, I feel like. I like to try to dismantle the patriarchy any chance I get. So I wanted to kind of make this more neutral and balanced in that way. And to bring in Katie was a really integral part of that because I wanted to create the gay best friend. But, the trope is the gay best friend. What do? You never know what they do. They're just the gay best friend. And they don't really have a life as far as you can tell. They're a one-dimensional character. And it was important to me to make Katie a three-dimensional person. Yeah, so that was the bit characters in a lot of these rom-coms are one-dimensional. That is something I absolutely needed to avoid. And I wanted to show that, friendship is in a lot of cases, friendship is more important than a relationship because the friendship's going to be there. And it was important to make Patrick and Katie the best kind of people that you could rely on and want to be around and are supportive. And, I've gotten some feedback on the scene where Max kind of confronts Patrick because Patrick's pushing him to be like, why are you working this company? You're kind of hiding. And he kind of opens up about his abuse. And it was important, and it was an opportunity for me to show that Patrick is a sensitive man, and men should be sensitive. Men should emote to each other. Men should be able to tell each other that they love them and that they can cry, and you don't have to tough it out. So that it was important that I got rid of all of that stuff.
Yeah, Patrick is the best kind of best friend.
Yeah.
We definitely all need like a Patrick in our lives, and a Katie too, actually. A Patrick and a Katie. So what is going to be next? Is this story like a one-off? Do you envision doing another one? Yeah, Elizabeth, you got that look. You got that, I wonder. But is there a possibility of continuing this?
We don't have any immediate plans. I think if Elizabeth and I talked about it, and if we could come to some kind of agreement on where the story would go, whether we feature Max and Eva down the road, or if we see the evolution of the app through a different set of characters. Yeah, I think it all depends. But I personally did not see myself going beyond the story that it is out now.
In a way, you don't really need to, because it does, I feel like it does kind of wrap up very nicely. There's no loose ends. There's no very obvious hammer to the head hints that, hey, there will be another volume. Just wait a little bit. Oh,
that's interesting. I feel like some people have said to me that because it's slightly open-ended with the way the story ends, because you wonder, well, what is Max and Eva's story past page 100? A lot of people have come to me and said, there's a sequel, right? I was like, what do you mean? Well, it's open-ended. That's got to mean there's a sequel. I was like, no, I want the reader to make up their mind where they think the relationship goes. And, I thought it'd be a fun thought experiment for the reader to go, based on everything you know about these characters, what they've gone through, where they're at now, where do you see them being in 5 days to 5 years? Yeah, there is no immediate plans.
This definitely reminds me of the end of another series called Giant Days, and that had a very open-ended ending, too, where it's like, what happens? Like, that's for you to decide.
Yeah, because that's life, right? Life doesn't end until the dirt naps, so it's like, why try to box it into something that feels contrived?
When the time came to ship this off to Comicsology, was it hard to say, okay, we're done. There's no more edits, there's no more rewrites, there's no more tweaking the art? And this is a question to the both of you.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. It was the most thorough I've ever worked on a book. I've never gone back into a book to fix, say, the lettering so late into the process. Yeah, I mean, Comicsology is interesting, at least with the original titles. I was essentially the publisher, which is interesting. So I had to manage the entire team, which I'm used to doing creator-owned books, but I had to go a step further and manage the tax elements and all this. I was like, wow, okay, I really am the publisher here. This is a new game. So taking on a lot of responsibilities that I'm not familiar with was pretty stressful, but it was a great learning experience. And, the people at Comicsology, especially Chip Mosher, who's head of content, is super supportive and championing this book all the way through, even with a few of the delays we had. And I just kept saying, I know we're late, but once you see her art, you're going to say it's worth it. And he's like, okay. And then when he finally saw it, he emailed me. All it said was, worth it. I was like,
absolutely. What is next for the two of you?
I got nothing.
That's honest. I like that.
Honestly, I'm breathing right now, catching up on some back commissions that I put on the back burner while I was working on this project, and I'm just relaxing kind of before I decide to dive into anything else. So that's where I'm at.
I have three projects in production. I've just pitched a new one with an artist. 2 of the 3 are pretty far into production. I'd say one of them is maybe 60% done. The other is maybe 50% done. Both through publishers I can't really speak on, but one of them is a publisher I've been trying to get in with for the entirety of my career. So it's been pretty exciting, and it was unfortunate that it had to get pushed to 2021, but it gives us plenty of time to get it all done before the first issue comes out. Yeah, we'll just see where it goes.
Busy is good. I think it's easy to kind of get caught up in everything that's been going on.
Oh, yeah.
And it just kind of saps I definitely talked to some folks who they're musicians or they're writers, and everything that's been going on since March is they just sapped them dry. They have like, I got nothing. I can't do anything. I'm just going to wait till it's all over. Was that an issue for either of you? Like, I mean, I'm not sure if you were working on this during the pandemic. Did this feel kind of draining to you from a creative level?
My answer is really short. No, I wrote the book in about 6 weeks, a year and a half ago. So, I mean, I know Elizabeth was working up through the quarantine. So, yeah, how was that for you?
Oh, it was okay because I was already just so like engrossed in work, and I already had a schedule that was pretty conducive to like not going out and like just minimal already. So that was fine. I think emerging from it was a little bit different, but as far as working into it, it didn't really affect me.
Yeah, I was writing this other series during the quarantine and during a breakup, and that was a huge learning experience because I thought, hey, if I can write during a pandemic and a nasty breakup with a person I'm still living with, I can write anywhere. So it's that's like the silver lining from that experience.
Now, since we've probably all had a fair amount of free time on our hands, since we can't go anywhere and so forth, I'm curious, what comics have the two of you been reading, just to relax?
I haven't been reading a lot. I think that's actually the pandemic is what really took a toll on me. Like I can usually read like a novel in a week, and I just finished a novel today, which took me far too long. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really read any comics in a while, actually.
Yeah. I have a building stack, but yeah, I'm same as Jeremy. I haven't really touched anything.
When I wasn't writing as much as I am now, it was like brain candy and creative fuel. But now it's like I have to be in the headspace to read a comic, even though I know it could take me 5 minutes to read an issue. But usually after writing, I just do the things I do to kind of decompress, and reading is not one of them.
I think I agree with you, Jeremy, because for me to read something particularly deep, like your story, for example, I got to be feeling in the right like mental space to say, okay, we're going to do this thing. And then I was like, or I could just read some like super action, slugfest that takes me like 4 seconds. Yay! Brain candy instead. Woo! Explosions, punches in the face, broken spines. Yay! A couple series that they're like on my stack waiting to read, but it's like, I'm not really in the mood to read something particularly sad. I'm gonna put that aside.
Yeah, I've been just watching episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I haven't really watched anything really new. I've been like binging old shows like Herb and Frasier. Yeah, it's like my brain can't handle new material right now.
What do you hope are the readers' takeaways from Virtually Yours?
I hope that they feel like they experienced a rom-com, because that's definitely what we set out to do. I hope anybody who's a New Yorker felt like they were in New York reading it. For readers to kind of like reappreciate, if they haven't already, friendship, and especially in the quarantine, like I've reconnected with friends because we all have so much time now in really profound ways, where like there's some friends that I just never got a hold of pre-COVID, and now I'm talking to them like every other day, and that includes family as well. So I just hope that when they finish it, they feel hopeful.
Yeah, I wanna parrot that, and then just also your best relationships could just be friendships, and it doesn't have to be anything more than that. Just having people that love and support you.
Something that I really also got reading this was that the comedy was not the usual pratfalls and bad jokes. It was real comedy. I mean, it was just like life comedy. I mean, like this definitely had some humor to it, but I didn't think it was excessively comedic. Was that one of the goals in writing it?
Yeah, I think so. Again, if anybody checks out Someone Great, you'll kind of see similarities and parallels, or even kind of the framework and blueprint of this story. I mean, the one thing that we actually couldn't feature, which was pulled from the book, is music. So we had 2 songs. I used 2 artists, Tina Turner and Otis Redding, throughout the book. And late into the process, we were told, we need to get the rights to this. And because we can't, you need to figure out a workaround. I was like, it's a kind of care. I was like, no, you need to do due diligence. You're going to need to work around this. And I was like, but how is anyone going to know that they're both listening to the same song? And so Adam and I were able to craft a solution. But Someone Great uses music in a really cool and profound way, where it's not the story about two people falling in love. It's about the story of two people falling out of love. And Robinson uses music not just as kind of filler, but as part of the narrative, because, and I'm a firm believer that music is a form of time travel. And in this film, music is used as triggers, emotional triggers, which is perfect. And I didn't really get to explore that component, which was unfortunate.
I would love to see a playlist to go with this book.
We actually have a playlist.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
That was easy.
The link after the podcast. Forgetting who ran the article with the music. There's so many outlets.
It was Comic-Con.
Oh, Comic-Con posted, and I gave them 5 songs for each character to kind of sum them up. But there is a Spotify playlist that Elizabeth and I have been listening to.
Ah, what are some of the songs? I'm really curious.
For Max, some Kendrick Lamar, some Gary Clark Jr. For Eva, Lizzo, some J-Lo. And just kind of like, I was finding a lot of music for Max that dealt with kind of like difficult feelings and slight denial of things. Like Bill Withers' Use Me is a prime example of Max's headspace. And Gary Clark Jr.'s Low Down Rolling Stone, I think I'm butchering the title, but that song is also right directly in the headspace of Max. But then he has to listen to music that kind of gets him up. So like Kendrick Lamar's DNA gets him up and out the door. And the same with Eva, like Lizzo has her kind of like just showering herself in self-love and having body positivity. And
if this were ever to be made into like a live action movie, I imagine the score would be phenomenal, because it just kind of lends itself to that kind of diverse array of sounds. You get the city setting, which is just diversity all on its own. The places, the people, just.
I think it would be wild for Bergen Street Comics to come back.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Oh,
because they're not, and that location right now is a coffee shop, which isn't. But
of course it is.
For both of us, if we were to go on set, for me specifically, to be able to see Bergen Street Comics again. And it would be cool if the music that we've been listening to for this book, if this ever got made, that they were able to get the rights, because Edgar Wright, who directed Baby Driver, I read this really interesting thing where all the music in the score and the soundtrack that was used for that film, a lot of the music he listened to while writing it, and he pushed hard to get the rights, because he was like, there's no better song than this. I literally wrote this chase scene to this song. This song needs, and he was able to get the rights to just about all of it, and it shows. It just works. It's just a perfect blend where it's like, yeah, there's no other song that would have worked for that scene. So.
Well, Jeremy, Elizabeth, I have so enjoyed talking about this book. People definitely check it out. ComiXologyOriginals.com. $6 a month gets you 25,000 titles. Marvel, DC, Image, Boom Studios, my personal favorite, and tons of other great indie titles. So thank you both again. This was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Brian Murphy from One Time Mountain, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout with Max Bowen.
Rock on.
Well, everyone, that's the end of the episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. I had such a blast talking to Jeremy and Elizabeth, and I highly encourage you to check out Virtually Yours, available exclusively through ComiXology Originals. Now, this service is one I've been using for a couple of years now, and I love it. Whether you're looking for Marvel or DC titles, or the latest and greatest in indie comics, this one has it all. Over 25,000 digital comics that you can download to your device of choice and keep it for as long as you want. No rush, no fuss, no nothing. And if you want to, you can also buy the comics through the Comicsology website. Go to ComiXology.com for more information. Now, I don't say this often enough, but big thanks go out to Pamela from Superfan Promotions. Anytime you've heard me interview someone from Comicsology, she's been the one to make it happen. And she's done amazing work with meeting my schedule requirements, working with the creators to help get everything in line, and she does it really, really fast. Check out superfanpromotions.com for more information. You can check me out on Facebook under Citywide Blackout, Twitter and Instagram under Citywide Max. Also check out citywideblackout.blogspot.com. Listen to me on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, TuneIn, and every Saturday at 10 p.m. on Boston Free Radio. As always, keep those ears open.